Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a subject to you that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is the subject of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster that happened a long time ago at this point. Still an interesting story. I read a book about it, so if the book was true, then I'm knowledgeable about it. And just recently watched a video. That's the reason for this video. It's not just a random idea. I watched a simulation, a very rough computer graphic simulation of what happens in a nuclear reactor when it melts down. And it was by rough. I'm not even going to link the video because it was pretty rough. It didn't even have an explanation for the symbols. And anyway, I'm not going to try to dunk on the video too much, but I do want to explain what happened to my understanding. And they were doing a test, first of all, when shortly before it melted down, they were performing a routine test at the facility, and it was a large facility to begin with. In the manner of many Russian engineering projects, it was ambitious and aimed at being sensational, publicly sensational, by being oversized. So it had that to begin with, which was significant. And on the night of the meltdown, what they did was pretty typical, and it seems like, based on the available data from the event, it's still not entirely clear to researchers or historians the extremely minute details of the timing and how what preceded immediately the meltdown. But what they are sure of is that it was caused by an inappropriate withdrawing of the cooling rods. Now, if you know anything about nuclear reactors, there is fissile material, nuclear material, that generates heat just by being nuclear. It's radioactive and it's decaying, and it creates heat by emitting radiation. And this heat is used to boil water, which turns a steam turbine and creates electricity. It's a pretty simple idea in principle. So in this case, at Chernobyl, on this night, they were doing a routine test, and they were testing the cooling rods, withdrawing them in sequence, and right before the meltdown, all the cooling rods were withdrawn for whatever reason. And this is the part I think that historians aren't entirely clear about, but in the brief moment they were completely withdrawn, a runaway chain reaction occurred where each nuclear particle in the reactor began accelerating its reaction. And this is expected, and it's a well understood process, hence the cooling rods. They're very important. So once it goes beyond a certain point, it's what's called a meltdown, and it is a runaway effect, and there's no preventing it at that point. So that's exactly what happened. It created an explosion and destroyed the facility, obviously, and created a disaster, an environmental disaster that to this day is a problem. They ended up building this dome over it, and there's still parts inside that are radioactive, to my knowledge. But this kind of thing is possible, not likely, and it doesn't happen very frequently, but it's possible with any nuclear power facility. It is a known risk by using this material, and generally speaking, smaller facilities don't have these same challenges, especially if they are managed in a way that is well designed and is not subject to human error, so to speak. There are some things that are very well managed via automation, computer automation, but there's a trade-off, of course. That's a separate subject, and I'm not going to get too much into the hazards and trade-offs of automation, but there are some. There's mechanical error that replaces human error sometimes. But anyway, it's an interesting subject, and if you read the book, it's called Chernobyl. There's one word title. Great read. It was actually a wonderful book. But reach out with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. I might actually make my own animation video about, to simulate what happened based on my understanding, because I don't think I could do worse. And I can talk trash about that one because I'm not linking it, so you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you.